Hello, good people. This is Sister Julia Walsh, and you're listening to Messy Jesus Business. Welcome to the Mess. I'm here with Melody S.G., who is the author of We Carry Smoke and Paper, Essays on the Grief and Hope of Conversion from University of Iowa Press. This book explores the cultural costs of religious conversion. Melody is also the author of 3 books of poetry, the recipient of several writing awards, a graduate of University of California, Berkeley, and the University of New Mexico. She was born in Taiwan and raised in Cerritos, California. She lives in St. Louis, Missouri with her husband and daughters. Melody, welcome to Messy Jesus Business.
Thank you, Sister Julia. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm thankful for your book and your work and all the ways you share beauty and truth through your ministries, through the sharing of your gifts of language. I love to start the conversations on Messy Jesus Business by allowing the guests to share their story, however they'd like to. How did you become the woman you are today? I know you've just written a great new book all about it. We Carry Smoke and Paper, and our listeners will hopefully pick up a copy of your memoir and dive into the details. But in a general sort of way, who are you and how did you become this person?
Well, I'll start with a story that I tell in the book, which is that I was born in Taiwan and I was adopted into a Chinese immigrant family in the United States when I was just under a year old. I grew up in Southern California in a suburb of Los Angeles that was rich with Chinese and Korean and Indian immigrants. I grew up in a very first generation culture with immigrant parents and grandparents. I went to school in California, and then I went to graduate school in New Mexico for poetry. My parents were so excited that I was going to get a master's degree, and I couldn't convince them that because it was in poetry, it wasn't going to be as lucrative as they probably thought it was going to be. But I met my husband while I was in grad school, and we moved to the Midwest, and we've been here ever since. We went to Indiana first, and have been in St. Louis for the last 17 years. I have 2 daughters. They're 13 and 11, and they're in the book as well. They were part of my conversion story very much. Their birth and their lives and our whole new family were the beginning of my conversion. I have published 3 books of poetry before this. Poetry is my first genre, and I've worked in different capacities as a writer. I was a writing teacher for a long time, and then I went into communications and marketing as a freelancer. I guess I would add that I became a Catholic in 2016. I started going to Mass and living a life as a Catholic before I received my sacraments in 2013. And it took me 3 years to come to a place where I was ready to receive the sacraments. And I did. And that's kind of the story of the book. What took me so long, what I was wrestling with, what I needed to reconcile in order to make that commitment and to receive. That's the book, and that's the story I was hoping to untangle as I was writing that.
Your prose is so beautiful, and I just am captivated by your story. Yeah, you're an
Thank you.
excellent
I felt
storyteller.
much the same while I was reading your book, and we had books come into the world in the same year.
It's so exciting. Thank you. So your title is unique and poetic. I mean, I think it reflects your poet identity. I'd love to start there. Why is the book called We Carry Smoke and Paper?
Sure. It's the original title of the essay that is now Pretty Liturgies. And it's the essay that's about what liturgy is and how I grew up with a lot of liturgical hungers and rituals and routines that were tied to being the daughter of a Chinese immigrant, but doing it on our own, alone, without a community, without a larger family. It was a liturgy, but it wasn't communal. And so it was rather incomplete. In that essay, I write about what we all carry and passed down to each other, what my grandparents and my mother carried over from China and had to pass on to me, and what I now have as a first generation Asian American to pass on to my biracial daughters. And sometimes it feels like it is as hard to grasp as smoke, and
Mm.
as light and as heavy as paper that carries our stories. I reveal the title in that essay in a couple of different paragraphs where I'm trying to meditate on what my mom carries and what I have to carry. And that's kind of a larger theme in the whole book. What does the church have to pass on to me? What do I have as a person of faith now to pass on to my daughters? What have I inherited and what do I give as my inheritance? I think that kind of runs through most of these essays. And so I thought it was a fitting title for the whole book.
What's light and what's heavy about faith?
Ooh, so much. My conversion, it was two things at the same time. It was quick and immediate and powerful. It was like falling in love. It was irresistible. And it was also really challenging. I felt like I was dragging my feet. I felt like I had so much to overcome, partly intellectually with certain church teachings that are challenging for me. It's challenging for me to be a woman in the Catholic Church. It's challenging for me to be a mother of daughters in the church. And there's part of my faith and my experience and my spiritual experience that feels so easy. It feels like being at home. It feels like being close to my truest self. And then there are parts that are so hard to do, parts that feel disappointing and parts that feel hard to overcome. Sometimes it feels like my intellect and my heart are in a battle. You know, the groups that the Catholic Church is not always the most welcoming to. I feel a strain there as well. And for women in particular, and women's bodies, it can be really, really challenging. It feels heavy to carry those needs and those really basic desires into a place where I have to be so vulnerable and I have to be part of this community. So those are some of the things I think about carrying.
I resonate so much with what you're saying. And as you know, I've been a Catholic my whole life. And I too know faith to be so complicated, right? It's like the more you know, the more complicated it becomes.
Yes.
The more you understand, especially the layers of history and how really since Christianity has been mainstream since the 300s, right? It's been part of the systems of oppression. Is that part of the heaviness that you're talking about?
I think so. Yeah. I would love to feel 100% aligned with my beliefs and my faith and my daily practices and my political beliefs too. But it is a big and messy and human church.
You're on the right podcast to be talking about that.
Yes, for sure. I find that the more I am involved with my parish, the more I jump into different ministries and the parish council and helping us recover from a recent downsizing that we've gone through in the St. Louis Archdiocese, the more I find that alignment is not my goal. Making it line up perfectly, making us agree, feeling comfortable, it just isn't the goal and it isn't what feels holy in that space. The differences among us and the tensions and yes, the conflicts are actually what feel good, what feel like they're drawing us closer and making us be more real together. That's actually been a big learning for me, is to really be thankful for the discomfort.
I love that. Thankful for the discomfort. I think what I'm hearing too is something about how the diversity is enriching somehow in the religious community. Maybe we'd be comfortable if there was conformity, there was predictability, but that would remove the organic nature of what it means to be human.
Yes, yes. I often wished for that while I was going through my conversion. It
Mm.
felt so hard sometimes. It just felt so hard to do. I had so many questions and I had so many doubts. And it was conveyed to me by more than one person that it shouldn't be this hard. But I look back and I'm actually really grateful for it, for how much I had to wrestle with my adoption and my parents' language and what liturgy means now, and with our embrace of death, all these things that I carried with me culturally as the daughter of Chinese immigrants had to be re examined in my conversion. They didn't fit into what my life as a Catholic was turning into. I would do these things that felt antithetical to the way my parents raised me. I would spend all of this unpaid time in prayer. I would be close to strangers. I would talk about death. I would give away my money. And I could just hear them in my head saying,
Ugh.
"What are you doing? This is not what we do. This is so outside of our culture and our practices." And
Mm.
I had to maybe not revise those things of my past and those things of how I grew up, but I had to, I guess, just reconcile them in a different
Mm.
way and say, yes, where I come from makes me who I am today. It all comes with me, but I can look at it differently.
So an integration, a weaving, it's not a
Yeah.
discarding, it's becoming more whole. Yeah.
Yes, very much so. My
Mm.
spiritual director once said, God doesn't split your life into the before and the after. And that's
Mm.
part of what the last essay is. It's about my thinking, I should have a conversion experience more like Saul. I should fall to the ground. I should be struck by a flash of light. There should be a clear line between my before life and my Catholic life. And it's certainly not like that. It was a slow coming together of wholeness, as you say,
Mm.
of bringing everything with me. I know a lot of Catholics I talk to struggle with coming to prayer when you don't feel like you're something that God wants to see right now or God wants to hear because you're just a mess. And I
Right.
hear all the wise spiritual people I know say, you have to come as you are and you have to come whole. You can't leave anything behind or leave anything out. And so that included my past and how I grew up very outside the church and very non religious. But that all belongs with me now, too. That's all part of my conversion.
I don't know how I got so concerned about this from such an early age, but I think I've always been in ecumenical spaces and I've been very, even as a child, concerned about hospitality. And I remember when some of my non Catholic family members, my cousins and aunts, uncles, came to my first communion when I was in second grade, I was distracted because I wanted to make sure they knew what page to be on in the missalette and like when to kneel and stand. I was a second grader. Like that was a strange consciousness. It took a while for me to realize there had been people who never had even been in church. And so then every time someone new would come in, I wanted to, how much you need to have explained to you, what sort of orientation would be helpful.
No, I love that. We can use so much more of
Yeah.
that. Sometimes
Mm.
I think, maybe cradle Catholics feel like this is so normal and you just come and you integrate. I felt awkward for the first 2 years
Oh, I believe it.
at church.
I mean, we're weird.
It's
We
so
do weird stuff.
It felt weird for a long time. I felt like I was always a step behind and a
Yeah.
note behind everything. I love the way you were thinking about it. You probably continue to think about it. Like, what do
Mhm.
you need to be welcome in this space? What do you need to feel oriented? What do you need to participate? But it was a struggle for me. I've had to figure that out largely on my own and with the help of my husband, who is a cradle Catholic too, and kind of guiding me through all of the steps until I just finally was able to pick it up. It was only after that that I realized the value of that routine of the
Mm.
liturgy, the value of being prescribed what to say and when to stand and when to kneel. once I kind of could embody that without thinking about it so hard, the experience changed. I could actually leave my body. I could join up with everybody else who was there. I could have a different kind of experience because the routine was so grounding eventually. And now I think about new folks and how I want to get them to that space and offer them that ability and that experience and how to make it easier for them to access that more quickly than I think it happened for me.
So what would be your advice? How do we invite people into Christianity if they've been
Yeah.
completely unchurched in ways that are hospitable? I don't want to be pressuring anyone into this.
Yeah, it's a question of evangelization, right? But I think about the new people who step into St. Pius V, which is my parish, and they tell me that they come back because a greeter in the back remembered their face or remembered their name. One woman said, somebody saw me for the first time and said, "Hey, you're new." And when she came back the next week, they said, "Hey, you're back." And she was connected to us for the rest of her life. And it's just being seen and acknowledged and known. And I know it's awkward to be singled out as the new person. It can feel like you're being spotlighted, and it can feel, but it's also just acknowledging that we're embracing you. Being new is wonderful. And we do want to see that in you. I felt like the moment I knew I had arrived in my parish was when a sister asked me to make some soup for a potluck. And I was like, I've been asked to bring something to the church potluck. I have arrived in this community. Asking them to join and to be recognized, I think, is part of our job.
That's beautiful. And it's so human, isn't it? The way we all feel at home is when we are noticed, when we're named, when our gifts and our ability to contribute are acknowledged. I think those are good hospitality tricks, no matter what sort of space we're trying to cultivate. Is that liturgy too? What is liturgy, Melody?
I was so curious as to why I felt the way that I did during the liturgy. I felt grounded and I felt swaddled and I felt really calm. I only noticed it after we'd been going to Mass for a few years. And then we went on vacation and then we came back after 2 weeks of being gone. And the immediate relief that I felt being there when the music started and when we all stood together, it was really palpable. I'd never felt like that before. And so I started reading James K. Smith, and he writes about what liturgy is and what it teaches us and what it's for. And it is a set of practices that teaches us what the good life is, what we aspire to, what we desire, what our first concern is. He has this really beautiful passage where he's describing going to the mall. And you don't know that it's about going to the mall while you're reading it, but he describes it in these really high liturgical terms about the smell and the arrival and the lights and the feel, and that any experience can be liturgical. It just depends on what you want that liturgy to be directing you toward and what you want it to be teaching you to strive for. And I feel like when I go to my home parish, the liturgy is teaching me that we are all coming here. We're gathering together because we are in need. We're in need of each other. We're in need of mercy and forgiveness. We are in need of each other's talents and gifts and time and comfort, and that we have to provide that for each other. So it's a really grounding experience. It's a really settling experience for me. I feel it at any church that I go to, but in a really special and particular way at my home parish.
And you've described a lot about the body already. This has already been a theme in our conversation and how faith is embodied. And that's my experience too. Sometimes I don't understand in my mind what's happening, but I know that in my body that this is what I need to do now. I need to kneel. I need to stand. I need to sing.
I live entirely in my brain, and it's hard for me to connect to my body. And so having that experience was kind of new for me, and it had to teach me to listen to what my body was saying and what it was experiencing, and that I didn't have to always think about my experience. I could just experience my experience because I like to watch. I like to
An
observe.
observer, yeah.
Yes, and then put words to it, but sometimes it just has to happen.
Yeah. Oh, I relate. Help me break open how embodiment and faith dance together. And what is faith, actually, from your point of view?
I don't know if I have a good answer for that, Sister Julia. I know that the things that I contend with are bringing my whole self to my spiritual life and my prayer life. Maybe it's just being a woman of my age. I'm 43, and having grown up in America in really heavily influenced by diet culture. It was so
Mm.
strong and so pervasive and so normalized.
In Southern California.
In
Yeah.
Southern California, everywhere. It was on TV. It
Yeah.
was constant. It was Slim
Mhm.
Fast and Weight Watchers. It was all about controlling your body and
Mm.
making your body acceptable and
Mm.
presentable and not letting it go. And that was still the discourse after I had my children, too. It was all about getting back to yourself, as if your changed self wasn't good, as if the thing that had happened to you wasn't miraculous and wonderful, and you should start this new life with your new body. You had to get back to where you were before because that was the good body. I think that contributes to my struggle of being more in my head and
Mm.
less unified with my
Interesting.
body.
Yeah.
And I read a lot. I'm reading Thomas Merton right now, who is saying the body is part of the creation, and your feelings that arise from your body, that's all part of it. It has to come all together. I don't know if this is a good answer to your question, that faith has to say yes to all of us. My faith
Ah.
has to embrace and say yes and say you are welcome to all the parts, the physical parts too.
As you connected to the American culture mindset about the perfect air quotes body and diet culture, it's interesting to me to think about that in light of Eucharist. Of course, this is a passion of mine from reading my book, how we each are actually offering our broken selves, and in that brokenness there is communion, and it's what builds up the unity and the solidarity among us, is being vulnerable and real about the fact that we're all fragile pieces of one another, actually, here.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
As you say, that's the other thing that I'm curious about is that part of what faith is, like allowing the mess of the humanity to all be there. Yeah.
Yeah, and the death of it too. I had
Mhm.
this really strong feeling when my daughters were born. They were at the very beginning of their lives, and it struck me that even they, at the beginning, are still dying along with the rest of us. We are
Mm.
all moving toward the same end, and that's not the end of our life, it's just part of our life. And it was really frightening, but really consoling at the same time to think about that, to think about how much life they had to live and how much time they had, but that also it was wrapped in the death that we will all experience too. It's our long struggle to contend with that as we live, and to live not despite that, but because of it and be enriched by it. The embracing it, I think, goes along with embracing the end of this particular life as part of a larger life.
Amen. Right. So, do you see that part of being a faithful Christian is about preparing for death? Is that part of what you're suggesting there?
Maybe preparing. Is it Ronald Rollheiser who says we have to give our life away and then give our death away? We have to make a gift of our death,
Yeah.
to say that, your death can be difficult for those you leave behind. if you resist it. But your death can also be an enormous gift to those that you leave behind. And maybe it's not so much preparing for the very, very end, but preparing to take the end well and preparing to be vulnerable. So many of my friends who are taking care of elderly parents are in a position much like having young children again, and tending to very needy bodies and tending to a lot of emotions. And I think about what that time will be for me, and if I will be able to just lean into that and say okay to that and try. It'll be hard, but try not to be angry about it and try not to be despondent and in despair as if it's some unfairness that's happening to me, as if it ought not happen to me, but that end is coming and I have to do the work now to be okay with it, so that the ones who are taking care of me aren't the recipients of that anger or despair.
So it's like we're aiming to live well so we can die well. And part of dying well is not fighting it, the fact that we all die, but it's
Yeah.
accepting it as a natural thing that occurs because we are living beings.
Yeah. Even the painful and vulnerable and sometimes humiliating ways that we die, to all the things that we lose control of in our bodies, and all the privacy that we lose at the end of our life, and all the exposure that our bodies and our minds have, to try and be really okay with all that's going to happen.
It's a good invitation. And probably a topic of our faith that we don't discuss enough. So I'm glad we went there in our conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, it's hard. I
I
don't do
know.
it well. I'm so petty and so resentful, and I like hold on to these things that I know at the end of my life I'm going to look back and be like, why did you spend your time? There were so many other things to do. It's a struggle. It's certainly a
Yeah.
struggle for me.
Yeah. I think about that sometimes too, like those charts that you see occasionally about like how many minutes in a lifetime we spend like looking at our phones or at a stoplight or doing these like very basic things, and you start to think, oh my gosh, why am I spending my life looking at my phone, or
I
when I
know.
could be looking at the trees. Let me be more in touch with creation and with God. Let me spend more time, be more disciplined about how I'm using time. Time itself is this very strange part of the human experience too.
Yeah, we
That
have
it
4,000 weeks according to Oliver Berkman. That's all we have.
So what else would you like to talk about related to your book? What else would you like readers to take away from We Carry Smoke and Paper? And
It's for a Catholic and a religious audience,
mhm,
certainly, but it is also for an Asian American audience. It's for
mhm,
an audience of first generation
mhm,
women who are living here and who have experienced different cultural obligations and complications and competing obligations, I think, who feel a tension between what it means to flourish in two different cultures. Those can often feel in competition with each other. And so while it is a book about faith and coming to faith, I think there is a thread too in the book that just really tries to explore what it feels like to navigate different cultural spaces
mhm,
with parents who don't speak the same language as you, and parents who don't see your home in America as their home, and
mhm,
parents who carry immigration trauma that affects how they raise you and how affectionate or not they are with
mhm.
you, and how they hold on to secrets or reveal themselves. These are essays that date back to 2007. They kind of all made it into the book and got revised and updated and written toward my conversion story, but they come from places where I'm also trying to wrestle with my cultural identities. I am hoping that this feeds Asian American readers too.
I hope so too. It's incredibly rich. I would like to ask you the other question that I ask all my guests.
Okay.
One is, what is discipleship for you? What are you discovering about the meaning of discipleship?
Oh my goodness, that's a big question. The word feels so big to me as a
Mm,
convert. I know that's what we all are. I
yeah.
know that we're all disciples, we're all followers. I feel like I just got here. I've been a Catholic for 8 years. So I feel like I am in third grade in terms of my faith. I'm just barely arrived.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We're glad you're here.
I think I am learning that, as I was saying earlier in terms of liturgy, it cannot happen in isolation. I'm starting to see that the same is true for discipleship. I don't feel like a disciple as much when I'm alone praying as I
Mm,
do when I'm at my parish's food pantry.
mm,
I feel very much more, after looking back at that time, like I was following, even though it doesn't feel like it in the moment. It just feels busy. It feels chaotic. It
mm,
feels fast.
mm,
And my prayer time, my personal prayer time, feels like time is slowing down. It's easy to imagine that as a discipleship time.
mm,
But when I look back, it's the times when I'm with other people and the times when we're serving together or just getting to know one another. That's something that I fight with, is my sense of urgency, wanting to get stuff done, wanting to get it done now, wanting to get it done on my time and efficiently and as well as possible.
yeah.
I think it was Greg Boyle who said we need to waste time with God.
Mm,
Looking at the ways that I'm slow with my children, or we're doing nothing, or I'm just at coffee and donuts with people after
mm,
Mass.
mm,
And it doesn't feel like you're getting anything done,
mhm.
but it's really just disrupting our belief about what it means to get something done and what it means to accomplish something. I
Huh.
guess those are the moments where I feel like I'm moving towards something or I'm following something that I need to be following.
And it sounds like, in a way, what you're describing, to me at least, it's more human to be part of this group dynamic than maybe in solitude. And also, if it's not about tasks and productivity, but it's more about the togetherness and the camaraderie, then we're actually resisting things like capitalism and materialism that are pretty oppressive systems to us as humans.
Yes, surely. I don't want to downplay the time in solitude and contemplation and prayer. That's really essential, but it is what makes me able to go out and be with others the way that
Mhm.
I want to and I need to do.
Yeah, it's connected to the mission of outreach that
Hmm.
is so central in the Gospels, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the works of mercy, for example, that direct the Catholic life of feeding the hungry and sheltering the homeless and giving drink to the thirsty and so on. I don't know if this musing connects, but I'll just share that in light of the shifts in our nation's political scene lately, I've been thinking a lot about the early Christian church and how Christianity was once such a subversive, collective, compassionate, risky movement.
Mhm.
And to really, truly love one another and love our neighbors, it requires a lot of cleverness and organization and risk taking and a willingness to go against the norms and the status quo for the sake of this is the call that Christ has for us here. So that comes to mind as you describe showing up at the food pantry and getting involved, and that's discipleship for you.
I also think about how much argument there was in the
Yes,
early
right?
church.
So
How they
much.
had to, yes, how they had to work out their differences.
Yeah.
But in order to do so, they had to air them out first, and how uncomfortable we've become with conflict and disagreement, even though
Mm.
that's the way that we were built together, and
Mm-hmm.
that we've come to believe that only harmony is a valid way of expressing our faith or being together, building something or working together.
Mm.
But it's in the conflict that we are honest. It's the conflict that reveals real diversity, and
Mm-hmm.
that we will be heard and make something
Mm.
together. Yeah, as we're moving forward in this strange political time, I hope that we continue to embrace conflict, not just with the other side or with those who believe differently than us, but among ourselves too, that conflict is good. It's a sign of
Mm.
health.
Right? It invites honesty, authenticity. We move away from the platitudes and, politeness into a place of like, no, let me really express how I think and feel now. But then we know each other better.
Yes, we just need the fortitude and we need the patience to hold that when it comes from someone, and not be afraid of it and or be
Mm,
defensive about it. Because I know that when someone disagrees with me, my instinct is to say that it's a personal attack on
mm.
me. And not do that is challenging, but I think we have to be able to hold each other's disagreements together just to make that space for each other.
So, is part of faith and commitment about confronting fears?
I think so, especially because we're so afraid of each other sometimes, or we're afraid of the dark parts of ourself
Mm,
sometimes. It's like when you're with a partner and you have your first big fight and you survive it,
mm,
and you're so much more confident afterwards in
mm,
thinking, I can get through that. We're still here. It didn't break anything. And it actually builds trust in you. But we're afraid of being angry. We're afraid of our own anger and someone else's anger. We're afraid of disagreement. I know that lots of women in my generation were raised to be avoidant and making
mm.
anybody feel unpleasant for being too much to handle or for
Oh,
being too
yeah.
much of anything.
Yeah, we're the same age. It
Yeah,
definitely was.
yeah. Be agreeable, be easy.
Right.
But yeah, I do think faith is about confronting those things we're afraid of. It's just kind of surprising to think about all the things we are afraid of. They're
Yeah.
not the big things, they're not the usual things. I
Mhm.
wish I was more afraid of doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing. I'm more afraid of being embarrassed. I'm
Mm.
more afraid of not sounding smart. I'm more afraid of those things than of being unkind,
Yeah.
honestly. And
Huh.
thinking about what we should be afraid of and confronting those things too.
Is there something here about resisting the culture of perfection and like how that's part of white supremacy? At least that's my experience is like you have to do things properly and there's a proper way to do things. But when there's more diversity and cultures, like there's a range of ways that things get to
Mhm.
be done. And
Mhm.
that's actually part of the beauty of humanity.
Yeah, and it's slow and it's hard to do it that way.
Mm,
I think I've heard from wise people that perfectionism isn't actually about doing anything right or doing it well. It's about a vision of yourself that is wrapped in shame for not getting it right, for not being good enough. So it's not really about striving,
mm.
it's about shame.
You're naming the complexity of it, right? It's messy.
Mhm.
This is part
Mhm.
of the messiness.
Yeah,
So
I'm starting
it's
to appreciate how apt your podcast title is.
and there's just so much complexity and layer in devotion. And we sometimes show up and okay, I'm going to go to mass, I'm going to pray. Okay, now if I take these scriptures to heart and I take these messages into my life and I live them out. Now I have to be thinking about what am I afraid of and why am I afraid of these things? And everything starts to unravel, which relates to another question I was going to ask. Conversion for you. Is that what conversion is? Like we talked about sort of this weaving, but is there also is it both?
Yeah, I think I've come to learn that conversion is not abrupt change.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even big change. Conversion for me, in my imagination, it was Saul falling down and getting back up again with a new name
Yeah.
and with a whole different outlook on life. And then I went back and I read that part of Acts. The story doesn't even live up to the story or to our imagination about it. And in my Catholic study Bible, it says he was called both. He doesn't get a name change, actually.
Yeah.
And he doesn't receive his sight back until Ananias calls him brother.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a moment alone with God. It's a moment with another person who shows him kindness and mercy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wakes up and he opens his eyes and he's restored. The lesson that I took from that is that conversion is not abrupt. It's not a bright line between then and now. And it's not something that you do without other people. It's not just between me and God. It's between me and God and my community and my family and even my parents who are not people of faith and who don't participate in this. I think they're happy for me. They're not in this space with me.
Yeah.
But it involves them too. It's more been a process of embracing all the different parts of me and being able to bring all of those before God. And it's not a new set of beliefs. It is a new set of practices, but it's not just a conversion that's acceding to new beliefs and saying, now I believe these things. I think it has a lot to do with belonging. And my conversion felt like a deepening of my belonging to my faith community, to my family, to my city community as well. It was just a deepening and a greater wholeness that I could move toward and not toward beliefs.
That's beautiful. I just love the way you articulate everything, Melody. You're so good. Lastly, what for you is messy about living the gospel?
Everything, right? It's everything, because I'm messy and my family is. Certainly my city and my church is. But messy just means not easy to label or categorize or call good and bad. I was just reading in Merton's New Seeds of Contemplation that what we don't want to do is increase the distance between good and bad, because we're all kind of responsible for everything bad and we're all kind of responsible for everything good. The good and the bad are much closer than we think. And it's when we try to pry them apart toward absolute good and absolute bad that we get in trouble with each other and with ourselves. That's where we divide ourselves from each other. So when the good and the bad are really close together, it's messy. It doesn't feel safe or comfortable or neat or easy. But I think that's where we have to be. And all the different versions of what it means to follow Jesus and what it means when we read the scripture and what we take from it, that's all so messy. And how we differently express our faith and expect other people to see our faith is messy too. That's just us humans, right?
Yeah. And it gives me a lot of consolation to know that Jesus is 100% human.
Yeah.
and he understands all the mess. He gets it. He's been there.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's still with us in it too, as Christ. Oh, yeah. Well, Melody, it has been so much fun to talk to you. As we wrap up, I'd like to offer you the chance to share how our listeners could find your book and support you in your work and your other books, all your books, and learn more about you.
Oh, thank you. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for the conversation and the time. Readers can find me at my website, melodyg.com. They can find We Carry Smoke and Paper from the University of Iowa Press. It just came out on October 15th, so it's fresh and ready to go. And you can find all of my books of poetry on my website as well. It'll direct you to the publisher's website. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you so much for this time together.
Thank you, Melody. Messy Jesus Business is produced and edited by Colin Wamskans. You can find us online at messyjesusbusiness.com and on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. If you like what you heard, please be sure to mention our podcast to your friends and followers. And we'd love to have your support via Patreon. From the bottom of our hearts and the middle of the mess, thank you. Messy Jesus Business is produced in partnership with the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration. You can learn more about our religious community and donate to our mission at www.fspa.org. I'm Sister Julia Walsh, and I'll catch up with you next time. Until then, peace and all good.